Yeah, you were talking about the humidity before. I can hear the raindrops on the roof here, so there's still some rain out there.
Yeah, it's going to be raining tonight and into tomorrow morning, but then we'll get a break. We'll see some sunshine going into the next work week, but we got to get through the clouds tomorrow. Tuesday, that's when the sunshine starts, and temperatures will be a little bit cooler, but then we'll eventually warm up to the 70s and the 80s by the weekend. So lots to look forward to.
Yeah, it's not too early to start looking at next weekend already with
No,
the
it's
temperatures.
not.
Just get through the rain tonight and the cooler temperatures in a couple days, and we'll be okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, lady. Thanks for watching Waay 31 News at 10. You can stay up to date on our website anytime at waytv.com. Have a great night tonight, but stay right where you are. Law Call is next.
This is Waay 31 Law Call.
Good evening and welcome to Waay 31 Law Call. I'm Sharon Dovey. Tonight it's Ask Us Anything night, so call in your questions on any legal topic. Maybe you've got questions about whether you can handle a car accident case yourself. Maybe you're curious about how the court process would actually work. Call in. Maybe you just wonder whether you even need a lawyer at all, and how do they get paid? What if you can't afford a lawyer? Call in the 31 Law Call number, 256-536-0077. You can call in and be live on the air, or you can text us to that same number and we'll have your text questions tonight. You can also email any legal question any day of the week. You send it to lawcall@waytv.com, and when we get to a show that's on point, we'll have some of your email questions tonight. Michael Timberlake's here from Timberlake League and Brooks. Good to have you here on this wet, rainy night.
Great to be here. It's always a challenge of my week.
It was very. We were talking about how foggy it is coming up to the station tonight. We'll talk about weather-related things, rain-related things. We like to get you started off while we're getting some calls locked in with some video. This is tonight's You Make the Law Call video. We pulled something off of YouTube. So you ever wonder how many different ways there are to roll a car? This looks like it is a European race, and so car after car after car, you get to see every possible permutation of this.
Yeah.
So in a cross-country race like this, I mean, it doesn't appear that anybody is seriously hurt, but you're taking on the risk, right, to be in these cars. Now, what if you're somebody that's on the side of the road here, whether this is the crew, if you're a journalist and you're covering a race like this and you get harmed? Have you just assumed the risk to be in these places?
It seems like a bad place. And this is not 565 on a Friday afternoon. But it's similar to this. You know, basically the way that, if you're going to go to a sporting event or something like this, if you don't have a written disclaimer, there's it's apparent that you are assuming the risk of some type of injury as a result of either being a spectator or engaging in an activity like this. So, if you sign a waiver typically for adults, those are valid for people that are going to participate. So that would be, the drivers, people would be excluded from any liability. And then the people that are watching, obviously it's kind of a, beware, beware of the racers type thing. So, not a lot of liability there. It looks like a bad corner in a racetrack, and maybe they want to look at trying to work that out for the next race.
Is it the same thing if you're a spectator, like at a baseball game or something, and you get hit by a ball? Are you assuming the risk just by being in the audience?
Yeah, correct. I mean, your ticket is a license to get into the facility, but it is not an insurance policy that you're going to be 100% safe. There are inherent risks in being at a baseball game. There's inherent risks of, being at a football game. So if it's something that is, uncontrollable by the owners and it's just part of the sport, you're not going to be able to make them responsible for what's going on. Okay. Now, if there's a net and it's supposed to protect you, and the net's defective, that may be a different thing.
Okay. We've got callers waiting. We've got Francis on the line with a question. Hi, Francis. Thanks for calling in tonight.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. What's your question tonight?
My question is about an eviction.
Okay.
I wanted to know what is it that's necessary to make someone, have someone removed from your home. I've been trying to get someone removed from my property since the 1st of December, and it hasn't happened, and I want to know what it is that I need to be able to have them evicted. They're not paying their rent, and they're damaging my home, my property, and they're not, helping me with my financials because it's something, I'm retired, and it's something that I need, and I'm not getting.
Do you have an
I've
actual
gone to court twice.
Gone to court twice. Do you have an actual lease with this person?
They do not have a lease right now. The lease has been expired
Okay.
for a while. They are not under a lease.
Yeah, so it's what we call a holdover tenant. But even if they are a holdover tenant, you still have to go through the eviction process, which is, and if you're in court and you've already gone through twice, you're well aware of the process. I think there's a 2-week notice of eviction that you have to provide. If they don't vacate the property, then that time period, then you have the right to file suit. You can go to court, then the court will evict them. If they're not out within that time period, then you get the sheriff to evict them. You can, there's some processes you can go by where you can remove their belongings from the premises, and that's all set forth in the Landlord-Tenant Act. So if you're already in court, you're probably going through the process to do everything that you can do. Unfortunately, it's not as quickly as you want it to be. Typically, it's a 30 to 45-day process to evict somebody from a premises.
We got this email question from Cynthia. Cynthia says, I had a small fire in our kitchen. The cabinets were damaged and I got burned pretty bad on my hands and my arms. That was 3 months ago and we're getting the runaround from our insurance adjuster. How long do we have to wait to have our claim settled?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question, and a lot of it depends upon the type of damage, property damage that you have, and the cause of the fire. The insurance company's going to make sure it wasn't, arson. They're going to make sure it wasn't something that was deliberately set, and then they're going to get in there and they want to figure out what damage was caused by the fire, what damage may have pre-existed that. And then you're going to have to, wait on contractors to get approval from the insurance company. So, unfortunately, it's not a quick, easy process. Obviously, pushing it every day, standing on the gas, basically is going to get it done quicker. But they've got a right to make sure that they're not paying anything that they're not supposed to pay, and you've got a right to make sure that you get it done right and you can understand the process.
If she's got these injuries, is that all going to get settled at the same time, or is that going to be maybe something different kind of insurance?
That's going to depend upon what was the cause of the fire. If it's a cause of the fire that was her fault, then that's probably not going to be anything she's going to get compensated for. If they can prove that the fire was caused by a third party, somebody else's fault, electrical failure, something like that, then you can go through and make a civil claim against the responsible party. But again, that still is going to take some time. Your homeowner's insurance company is not necessarily going to pay you for injuries that you suffered on your own property.
We've got Debbie on the line with a question from Joppa. Hi, Debbie. Thanks for calling in. What's your question tonight?
I'm having trouble with the people that bought the land beside mine.
Okay. Next door neighbors?
Yes.
What's going on?
I had it resurveyed, and they are moving the line. They put up a line, and they keep moving it farther and farther on my land. And like I said, I had it resurveyed, and I'm a widow, and they just keep doing it, and I don't know what to do.
Okay. Are they putting fences up there, or are they building anything on it, or are they just moving the little markers?
They are stretching a line, and instead of going the way the land line runs, the way my survey style was put, they're just like going way around with their line, and then they come back down and hook them right there beside my stop.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, is there a fence? Are they trying to put up a structure? Is there a roadway there? Is there, is the lot line accessible? Does people use that?
No.
Okay. I mean, what you're really looking at here is the pins and even the string that the surveyors may put up. It's not going to necessarily affect people trespassing on your property. It is not, but them moving the pins are not. I mean, moving the pins is illegal, but if they were moving the lines or they're moving the string, it doesn't give them any legal rights to your property. They're not going to be able to adversely possess that property. If they start to build a structure on it, then that becomes a situation where you've got to take action and make sure that you stop that before they get it in place. But just the fact that they're not being nice about the existing line doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to obtain any property ownership to your property as a result of that. If you want to, you can build a fence on that property to try to delineate the line and where the survey is, and that may alleviate some of these problems that you're having. Or if they are coming onto your property repeatedly for some kind of whatever purpose, you can contact the sheriff about them trespassing on your property.
So far, there's no real damage, right?
Exactly. I mean, it's not. They're not being nice about it, and obviously, evidently, they're upset about where the line is. But until they, try to do something that gives them some kind of ownership property or some kind of harm to you, it's what do you do?
Yeah, those are tough relationships too. The next door neighbor.
Exactly.
We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. It's Ask Us Anything night. Stay with us.
You're watching Way 31 Law Call. Your rights, your calls, live. Presented by the Tennessee Valley's award-winning personal injury and wrongful death law firm, Timberlake, League & Brooks. Featuring the knowledge and experience of Attorney Michael Timberlake, Attorney Will League, Attorney Heath Brooks, Attorney William Maservi. And hosted by broadcaster and family law attorney Sharon Doviet. This is Way 31 Law Call.
Welcome back to 31 Law Call. Tonight it's Ask Us Anything night, so call in your questions on everything from car accidents, medical malpractice. We've got callers waiting. Michael Timberlake's here from Timberlake, League & Brooks. We've got Tommy on the line with a question from New Hope. Tommy, thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
I want to know if there's anything I can do about illegal immigrant ran into me in a parking lot in a store in Huntsville.
Okay.
And I've got insurance that I've had. It's a real well-known insurance company that I've had insurance with them for 50 years, and they took the side of the illegal immigrant that had no driver's license, and they paid for their vehicle to be fixed and a rental car, and I have to pay my deductible, which they'll pay for mine to be repaired. But with I just wondered if there was anything I could do about that.
Yeah, if you're not happy with what is being offered, what can
Well,
you
I
do?
mean, yeah, one is your insurance company is got a legal obligation under the contract that you've entered into them to pay for claims where you are liable for damages to another person or their property, and that's what the insurance company is going to do. They don't have to get your permission to settle a claim if you've provided compensation for them to and contracted with them to pay claims that you are responsible for damages. They're going to pay those claims that you're legally obligated to pay. So that's what the insurance company's done in this situation. Unfortunately, some insurance companies will give you the option of having to approve a case or not, or a claim, but typically that's in a professional liability setting. But in a situation like this, your insurance company has looked at the situation. They've determined that you're liable for the damages to this other person or their property, and they're going to pay the claim. And that's just kind of the way it rolls. That's what you agreed to do.
If later down the road they raise his rates, I mean, and he disagrees with things the way it's been handled, what does he do about that?
Well, I mean, basically they've determined that it was his fault.
Okay.
He's responsible for the damages. He's going to have to pay that. The insurance company's they're regulated. They have some privileges. They can't. I mean, they have some oversight. They can't necessarily deny somebody a claim for a wrong reason or deny a claim in bad faith. But if they've evaluated a claim fairly, there's really not much he can do.
And if the other person is not even legally in this country,
Right.
that they still have to pay it.
In the court of law, we look at evidence in the situation. What is relevant to the facts,
Okay.
right? What is relevant to the injuries and damages that this person caused? And if you cause injuries or damage to somebody else, in the court of law, the fact that they may not be legally in this country or may not have legal status to be in this country, that's irrelevant in
Okay.
terms to the case for injuries and damages. So that whether they had a driver's license is not relevant to whether you injured them or caused them problems. Whether you had a driver's license is not relevant to that situation.
Okay.
So the court has processes and they look at what's relevant to the claim, and then they will make the appropriate decision.
Okay. We've got Christy on the line with a question from Fayetteville. Hi, Christy. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Yes, ma'am. I have a question about titles. We were left some money, me and my sister, several years ago. We paid to have a lawyer and estate settled. Fast forward 5 years, I'm trying to sell one of my last pieces of property, and the title came back, and there was a parcel that was left out of it many years ago. How do I go about? Do I go about getting a real estate lawyer? Can I get a regular lawyer, or is this something that should have been included in the estate when it was settled?
Gotcha.
Yeah, so if there was, basically what happens when if there's an estate, then the personal representative of the estate handles, will hire a lawyer to probate the estate. And typically when the estate is closed, all the property that is involved in that estate is then passed down to the heirs, and title is, written to them. You have a deed to the heirs, so the title is clean for the heirs. It sounds to me like that didn't happen in this case. There was a parcel that was owned that wasn't identified or wasn't properly transferred. So, what you're going to want to do is talk to somebody that does real estate work, and most real estate lawyers do probate work like this at the same time. So you'd have to, look into that situation and basically file an action to quiet title is what we call it. And that way the court would go in and they would look at the circumstances of what happened, and then they would issue orders that would then allow the lawyers to transfer the property to the heirs. It could potentially require the reopening of the estate, or it could potentially just require notice to the people that are potential beneficiaries to the thing, but to the property. But you're gonna have to talk to a real estate lawyer, probate lawyer that handles that in the county where the property is.
Hopefully, since there hasn't been a whole lot of controversy in the family this whole time, right? Maybe,
yes,
maybe it can go simply.
Things can go really, really, really smooth if everybody agrees. Things can go really, really wrong if there's one person that's an outlier.
Let's talk a little bit about the weather we've been having lately.
It's lovely.
It's lovely. It's wet. It's foggy. Let's talk a little bit about roof damage and leaks and things and what you tend to see. And so when somebody's had major damage, if there's been something going on, you are obligated to do something to prevent it from getting worse, right? Get some tarps out and cover it up. Talk to us about the kinds of issues you see and how to prevent problems going forward.
So somebody contacted us just recently and they said, look, there was a windstorm in my area, my neighborhood, and I had 5 of my neighbors, and they all got their roof replaced. My roofing company came out. They didn't even get on the roof. They sent a drone up to assess the damage.
The new tech.
And said, oh, it's wind damage, and we're trying to pay me for some shingle repair. And they're not going to replace the entire roof. And so, we were looking at it. We said, well, one is, insurance companies, in order to assess, whether there's hail damage on your roof, they're going to have boots on the ground. They're not going to be able to do that with a drone. So either, you need to get a roofing company that will come up and give you an estimate and document the fact that there was hail damage. This person had, 5 estimates that said he needed a new roof. And that's great, but why did he need a new roof was the question. So you've got to be able to document that it's a result of hail damage. So we advised him, said, look, go get the information from your neighbors, see what their insurance companies did, documented, and if it was all documented that this was hail damage from a particular storm and your house has hail damage, then you're going to be successful. But a lot of it is pushing back at your insurance company, make sure that they do the right inspection at the right time.
Your insurance company, or many insurance companies, will tell you no, right?
Oh, yeah, they'll love to tell you no. And then you say, please put that in writing and explain to me why you're saying no. And they don't like to do that.
They don't like that. We got in a text question. So somebody had been hit by a car and they want to settle the case, but they also had his kidney was injured in this car accident. Will the insurance company pay for that? So if you settle one part of the case, if you settle the property damage, is the personal injury part still open?
Yes, and that's kind of one of it's kind of car accident 101. It's part of the things that we tell everybody on a regular basis, is that you can settle the damage to your vehicle separate and apart from your injury claim. And just because you agree to a settlement for the property damage or the replacement of your vehicle in a car wreck situation, it doesn't mean that you've waived your right to make an injury claim. You definitely want to be sure that you know what you're doing when you resolve the property damage in terms of what you're getting, in terms of the value of the car, whether there's diminishment in value or whether you're getting fair market value for your vehicle. But those claims can typically be handled by the owner of the vehicle separate and apart from the injury claim.
We got somebody texting in that's talking about their employer has changed their time for their work, and they've got proof of it. It says it's the second time that I've clocked out, and the employer has gone back and changed it. What do you do about that?
Well, I mean, if you're working, but your boss is just changing your hours arbitrarily, is not legal. They're required to pay you for the hours that you have actually worked, and that's a Fair Labor Standards Act type claim that can be made if it's significant enough. Typically, in this situation, you're probably not dealing with large amounts of money, but you do need to be able to say, look, I'm working these hours unless there's some legitimate dispute over whether I'm working or not. You cannot change my time clock, take my card, or pay me less than the hours that I was working.
They're telling us to take a break. We're going to take a break, be right back answering more of your Ask Us Anything questions. Stay with us. If you haven't gotten your questions answered tonight, here's how to reach Michael Timberlake with Timberlake League in Brooks in Huntsville, 256-536-0770 or 800-804-2502. The website is law-injury.com, and if you like them on Facebook, you can learn more about the law that way.
And Sharon practices family law right here in the Tennessee Valley and all over North Alabama, 256-539-7337. She handles child support, divorce claims, any type of things dealing with family law. SharonFamilyLaw.com.
Thank you, sir. We got in a text question. Person went out for drinks with a friend, went to sleep in their car, thinking that's the safe thing to do and not drive, but the police arrested them in the car for DUI.
All right.
Can you get a DUI for being in the car asleep?
If your keys are in the car, and if you have control over your keys and you're in your car, you can be arrested for DUI. That's kind of the legal standard that we look at in that situation. So what they told me in law school is that if you are going to sleep in your car when you've had too much to drink, take your keys and throw them as far away from the car as possible so that you can't find them and the police can't find them, and then they cannot arrest you for DUI because you're not in control of the vehicle. Now, you can be arrested for public intoxication if you are still intoxicated in a public lot. But basically, the trick is, look, if you're going to be, if you think that's the safest thing you can do, you can't Uber, you can't dial a friend, you don't have anybody to come get you, the best thing to do, put your keys somewhere in your vehicle or they're not accessible to you. In the trunk somewhere, hide them so you can't be found.
Thanks for all your calls and questions, and we'll see you next week. Good night.